Thank you very much, Walla. Thank you very much. So I'm Richard Campbell from the Agile Business Consortium, and I'm the product engagement lead. And what that means is we develop the certified learning products that are taught by the Westminster Business School, amongst other training organisations, and APMG is the certifying body, so they make sure that Walla's team do a proper job and that the examinations are rigorous. That's the relationship between all of these. And Dominic from STAR will be talking in a few minutes about the new certification that the business school is going to be introducing around Change Manager. So the STAR Manager. So that's the flow we're going to have. I'm going to start off with a brief introduction to Agile Project Management and where that fits in. And we'll go through it, and then it'll end up in a Q&A session to make sure we've brought the two things together and show the synergy and the interplay between these during the course of the event. I'd like to introduce my colleague, Niamh Trundel. And Niamh, would you like to say a few words about your role?
Sure, thanks, Richard. I'm going to stay seated because I've got a bit of a cold. So my name's Niamh Trundel. I work for the Agile Business Consortium, and I'm the learning designer. So I work very closely with Richard. I've worked very closely with Richard on Agile PM V3. So I've developed all the learning resources and the learning assets. I've worked with APMG on creating the exams and creating all of the training materials and learner materials as well. So, and translating the reference book into plain English, which I think is quite satisfying. So I'll pass back to Richard.
Very good, okay. Excellent, thanks very much. So what I'll do is I'll run through a few slides. This is artificial intelligence, sort of to try to express the way so many people feel in their organisations, an expression of the volatile, uncertain, complex and ambiguous world in which we live. And you might say the analogy is here we feel like we are on a little boat being tossed about in stormy seas. And how do we make sense of all of this? And I'd like to think during the course of the day we'll talk a little bit about getting, as an individual, with the correct mindset and approach to leadership and culture so that you are capable of navigating these stormy seas. And from an agile perspective, we'll be talking about, well, how do you get yourself organised once you've got these people who are such empowered to work in a consistent way to deliver what the organisation actually needs. And it's that combination which I like to think we will be touching on in today's talk. So if that's where we are, that's our sort of view as to where we are today. So the consortium aren't the only ones out there who are saying the world of work is changing. And I would draw your attention to the World Economic Forum's Future of Jobs report from 2025, which identified some of the skills that are required of people in the modern workplace that is changing most dramatically. These are some of the areas, these are the major factors which were driving it, but probably more, given in the interest of time, these are the key skills which are most demanded and are least well supported. And the focus here is we need to get much better at doing all of these things. And you don't have to be a genius to see, look, analytical thinking. So taking information and being critical about it, properly understanding its context, getting away from idealist thinking about where we are and where we want to go, and getting back to the concrete reality of the material world and material conditions we find ourselves in order to make progress. That is a big part of what we're going to do. And we would argue that the reality of achieving that can only be done when you are empowering the brightest minds in your organisation, not in a top-down waiting to be told what to do from an organisation, but the people who are closest to the problem are empowered with clear guardrails as to where they're going in order to focus on the things that are most important for the organisation. But they need to be empowered to do the job. And that's what agility really is all about, and that's what we'll be focusing on here. So analytical thinking. Go ahead.
I think all of these skills as well are even more important now because of AI. I'm sure Islam would agree. Critical thinking, analytical thinking, so all those, that we can't just get AI to do. These are going to be really important in that context as well.
Well, there's so many things that are happening. Exactly. AI is a great example of an interrupter. You know, it's a disruptor of the way we're thinking. We need to change our way and as we develop these skills, be aware of how we're going to take advantage of the opportunities that are out there. We were actually talking about the negative side of AI earlier. Did you want to elaborate on that? Now, so we were talking about the ecological side of it.
Yeah, we were just talking about the ecological impacts that people don't. We were just, while I was trying to wolf down some lunch, and you know, the negative impact on the planet that people don't realise, you know, when they're using AI. So maybe that's very.
We just need to be aware of things in a holistic way. I mean, that's really the point we're trying to get to here. So. We've already mentioned, you know, VUCA. This is the challenge that agility looks to respond to. So, if your environment doesn't suffer from this as a problem, then traditional ways of thinking, if traditional actually exists in any form, but your current ways of thinking, if they're not broken, why move to agility? But we would argue that this is so acute in so many organisations. The rate of change is so high. The volatility of the situation, getting people to think differently about how they go about bringing about results, bringing about the outcomes, because doing nothing is not an option. So the VUCA world is driving everything we're doing in agility. Now, by way of an introduction to Agile project management, it comes out of industry practice. So going back to the 1990s, British Airways, British Telecom, and Oracle and IBM and a whole bunch of different organisations got together to say, we're all facing a similar problem here. Can we share our collective thoughts to say, is there a better way to be running projects and product development in our organisations? And the origins of what's in Agile PM comes from that collective thinking. And over the years, it's evolved and developed by working with training organisations like the Westminster Business School. They train practitioners in how to do it. They then go into industry and they put it into practice. Our job then is to see it at the other end, coming out of the project. What have you learned by trying to do this? And how can we improve Agile project management as a result of your experience doing it in practice? My colleagues from APMG shared some of the details with me that not many miles from this point here, we've got tens of thousands of people in the Home Office, in the NHS, in the Ministry of Defence, all sorts of government departments have taken this sort of training, so they're trying to apply agility in major government programs. Most of the banks, not that far from here either, are doing exactly the same thing. Many organisations are doing it. The question is it delivering the results that are needed? And how far down on that journey to agility are we actually at this point? Now, one of the major drivers behind the new development of Agile PM is making sure that we're much clearer on the relationship between the outcomes that a project is going to give and how we get the organisation to specify that and work with the different delivery teams in an effective way. So it joins up top-down planning with the bottom-up power of agile teams. And that's a big part of what we have done. And that's a cultural aspect. And I don't know whether that's something I'd invite you to talk about, Niamh, a little bit.
It might just be interesting that we use this approach when we were creating all the learning content for Agile PM. So everything that we have in the learning assets are based on outcomes. So we've got all the intended learning outcomes that filter through everything as well. So it's connected with the syllabus. So everything is aligned. So we applied that in our own project. So we're trying to practice what we preach.
We do indeed, yes. So what I can't do in 5 minutes, because that's what I've got here, is give you a course in Agile project management, but that's the purpose of the business school to do it. But what I'll do is I'll give you a flavour of some of the things, some of the key differences, the sort of ideas that you get when you learn about Agile project management. So this diagram is a very common one that many organisations have. When you think about putting a project together, it's the balance you have between the features you're trying to deliver, delivered to a certain quality, at a time, and at a cost. And these are different pulls and pushes that the organisations have. And what we have here is what we do, because we have work in very contractual nature, we work to fixed timescales, we try to fix the features that are delivered because we're contractually bound to deliver those fixed features. But what actually happens is that the time and the cost, and to a degree the quality, become variables, not intentionally, but that's the reality of it. So many projects fail because of that reality. So what we do with Agile Project Management, we turn it completely around the other way. And we say, what we fix is the time and the cost. And correspondingly, we set a quality regime that delivers, that specifies exactly how we're going to do it. And what we flex are the features. Now, that requires a different way of thinking about the project. And that also is a recognition that the world is dynamically changing. And, so again, maybe I'll ask Niamh to talk about this a little bit. And it's to, the project starts in November. But by December, the world's actually moved on. So what was most important in November, but you've already started the project, if you committed to this to the end, you're wasting time to a degree. You should be in a position where you're constantly reassessing what is most important. And that requires not just within the team to be thinking, but through the whole organisation. I mean, do you want to...
Well, with prioritisation and Moscow prioritisation, which we cover in Agile PM, so we use it ourselves, don't we? We use Asana and we Moscow prioritise everything, and then we have all different dependencies, and things do come along and things do change. That's why you can leave planning sometimes to the last sensible moment. So you don't know what you don't know. So the closer you get to the start of a project, the more information you'll have. So yeah, we use this a lot. So in the consortium, we have an online learning platform. So, we'll fix the time, we'll fix the quality, we'll fix the cost, and then it will just be the various features that we prioritize. So it might be that we have like the must-haves and the should-haves, and then the could-haves, and then the won't-have this time will be maybe in a later project or a later course. So
needing to be intentional with that.
Yeah.
Too rarely in projects do we say, no, we won't do this at this point. And it's the won't do. We won't do at this point. It's such a critical part of that as well. So we are not trying to juggle so many balls. We're focusing on delivering a few of the most important things, not trying to do millions of things and failing with
and ordering the backlog. So, where we have lots of learning courses that we're developing, Richard showed you the skills for 2025. So when something like that comes out, maybe the courses that we're developing will go higher up the ranking. They'll be more important to develop and get out quicker. So that's where all of this stuff becomes really important.
Just to give you just another aspect of Agile project management, just to give you a feel for it, it doesn't look like any other project. That diagram is an unusual diagram. It's unusual for quite a deliberate reason, that it doesn't look like a typical project is. But what it's trying to do is it's recognizing that Agile project management as a process starts at the top with a pre-project. So shouldn't be doing this at all. Basically, decision. Should we do it, should not do it. Then you go into the feasibility and foundations phases of the project, where feasibility, can we do it? Have we got the resources, the time, the relative priority for it? Once that goes out, you go into foundations. You're starting to ask the questions, how should we break down the project? What are the things we need to do first? Can we structure it in such a way we can get something out there that we can actually start to get feedback from as quickly as possible, and not plan years out, but it's literally, can we do something in days and sometimes weeks or months, start to get that feedback and start to get into that iterative, adaptive loop that you're trying to do with agility. And with to the left-hand side of the diagram, you've got, this represents the delivery team. So you might have multiple teams in a project working together under this common project framework. And you're trying to coordinate them to work in small cycles of iterative development and coordinate that to deliver what is actually the most important to the project at any one time. You're constantly reassessing and redirecting what those teams should be doing. And it directly addresses a problem that's called the dangling Scrum problem, which is many teams are out there implementing Scrum all over the place. And people high up in the organisation sort of feel like they no longer have the language or the ability to seriously control what these empowered Scrum teams are doing. This is exactly what we're trying to do here. Link those two things together so the Scrum teams have very clear direction as to what they should be doing so it aligns with the organisational objectives. So that's a big part of what we're doing, and that's just another little snippet about Agile project management. The last snippet about projects, maybe I'll sort of turn this back to Niamh. Do you want to talk to this diagram?
Yeah, so we redeveloped this diagram to show how the different roles would be separated into different teams. So we have the solution delivery, we have value ownership, and we have delivery enablement. So we've color coded it. We have the different circles as well, connecting the different roles together, but also showing that they're distinct in their value stream. And then we have the advisory roles. Richard, maybe you want to explain why the advisory roles are not part of the circles?
So generally speaking, the people attached to the circles are going to be permanently attached to the project. You do get contention of resources in every sort of project, but generally speaking, they are dedicated to it. But you won't know during the project who you need to bring in order to assist you, for instance. So if for instance, if we talk some sort of cultural development or leadership development might be needed, you might be going to the organisation and say, can we bring advisors into the project to assist at different times of it? You need to be thinking dynamically about what roles. This means working with HR departments in particular. Who can help us with different skills that are needed or different competencies or understandings of the market or the technology or whatever it might be that enable the organisation to come to.
So that might be a business analyst or a change manager or a change agitator.
Exactly. There's any number of different roles that might be brought in. And, going to the colours. So the value delivery bit is that they own the customer relationship. They understand the value we're trying to deliver to the end customer, whoever the end customer is. And so all of the orange roles really have that focus, and that's why you get, for instance, the business sponsor and the product owner very tightly related relationships, or at least they should be. The delivery team, so the solution delivery teams, which is the teal blue colour here. This is the developer working with the solution architect very closely. And then the purple colour are the project manager as purple. This is delivery enablement. How do we make sure the project itself works as a whole for the organisation? It is the management of the project. That's at the heart of what it is, and works very closely, for instance, with the Scrum Master in a Scrum team.
And Richard, we did have a different diagram for this. Because Islam was asking about it at a different event. So maybe you want to explain why the diagram changed and why we don't have that alien baby anymore.
Ah, yes. Some people called it the alien baby and others the snowman. But it was quite hierarchical. It was the head represented what you might say traditionally more leadership roles: the solution architect, the project manager, and the business visionary and business sponsor up at the top, and then the developers were the body down at the bottom. Increasingly, we've got to get away from this hierarchical thinking. These are people with skills that need to work together to get the solution. And hierarchy works against you with agility in many, many cases. And we just want to move away from that sort of language and that sort of thinking far more about what skills do we need to make the project deliver. I think that's a vital
and the hexagons all fit into each other very neatly. So
yeah. So we felt this model sort of culturally fits with us as well. So that's the whistle stop tour, and I think it's time now to hand over to Dominic to provide an introduction to STAR. So I will drop over at this point. So
thank you very much. And my own exposure to Agile was many years ago, and it's nice to see how it's evolving. And the most powerful thing about Agile is it provides that structure for project managers to work within. But I'm minded that in a rapidly evolving world, having that structure and thinking about how we're going to deliver projects in an agile way is for nothing if we cannot take people with us. And that's really the essence of operational coaching, what I want to talk about in this introduction to STAR Manager. So I'm sure many of you won't be dialed into necessarily all the leadership and management press, but it's been growing in volume over the past number of years, and many organisations are coming to the stunning realisation that unless we do something pretty serious, we aren't going to be able to deliver as an organisation. There is a growing recognition that middle management has been overlooked for so long, but organisations that need to effect change will always effect that change through their middle managers. And middle managers are having to cope with just a terrific amount of change in the workplace that's happening so rapidly. And this is some of the reality. Sadly, we're at the bottom of the European table in terms of employee engagement. Just take a moment to think about that. We are 10% of employees who would say that they are actively engaged in their work. I think only France is less than this at 9%. So we're at the bottom of the league table. And this isn't just Europe. There's an international malaise around employee engagement because the pace of change, people are bewildered. They really don't know how to, what's going to happen to them next. Are they going to be made redundant? Are they going to replace them? So post-COVID, there's been so much change in people's values, and they want different things from work, and work isn't changing rapidly enough to meet them. This year in particular, 27% of the workforce will be Gen Z. I'm looking around the room, not many Gen Z in here, but if you've ever employed Gen Z, I have. Gen Z want to be running my company in the first 2 weeks. They have a very different expectation of work. They do not want to be managed. They want to be coached. And Gen Z are joining organisations and they're leaving very quickly. And the reason is because they're looking for a manager that can cultivate them. And they're not finding it. Gen Z have come into the workforce so fast, leadership and development training has not adapted to help managers think about how are we supposed to manage these upstart youngsters coming in who want to be running everything. And the truth is, I truly believe this generation coming to the workforce has the greatest potential to change work, our output, our products, if we can dial into that and help bring their talents into the organisation. They have a very different mindset. And this is the most stunning statistic. 50% of employees will leave a job just to get away from their manager. Has anyone done that in this room? I have. Yes? Okay. Several of you. So this is the backdrop. This is the reality. And just a little diagram there, 50% of people are leaving because most managers, in the absence of having had any reasonable management development training, default to problem solving, fixing, directing. They feel obliged to help, and people come to them for help. They're going to step in and help. They probably used to do that job. They know how they fix it. But actually, when we strip away what's happening, we're micromanaging people. We're inhibiting their chance to show what they can do. We're not pulling their talent into the business, we're directing them. So actually, we're keeping them down. And that's why Gen Z are leaving so rapidly. They're looking for a manager who's going to draw on them, allow them to show what they can do. So this is the reality that managers are facing. And just, put your hands up. Actually, let's do this. Just put your hands up now. And if any of these apply to you, drop your hands, okay? Put your hands up now. Drop your hands if any of those three apply to you right now. Any of you dealing with retention, when people leave, it's often the managers who have to make up the gap. How many are doing more than one job right now? Disengagement we talked about already. People with changes in values, they're coming to work, they're clock watching, they're limiting, is this work and I have my private life, they're changing your values. Work-life balance becoming more important. Okay, not many hands still up. Hybrid working, you're trying to manage a team, half of them are working from home, you don't know what day they're going to be in. I mean, how are you supposed to get team cohesion? Managing well-being, now we've got to be social workers as managers. We've got to tread carefully, not step on a social landmine and cause offence through something we say. Part of the challenge is 82% of all managers have no management development training. None. Only 9% of managers even have a qualification that's vaguely anything to do with management. And yet we're thrown in. With the accidental managers, we get promoted because there's nowhere else to go. Or we're technically good at something, but then we're given a team, and somehow we're supposed to evolve into this incredible enabler of the talents of our teams with no training. It's no wonder we're struggling. So there's a lot going on, and the thing to say is that we are absolutely on the side of managers and leaders. No criticism intended. It's just that there is a void in how we're even helping or enabling managers to be more effective. And so that's the backdrop of our work. The most significant change now, though, is that Managers used to cling to the idea that they're safe because knowledge is power. And of course, knowledge is now being completely democratized by AI, and that paradigm does not exist anymore. This is now the truth. If you are not able to engage and enable the talents of other people to get things done, you will be relieved of work. Fact. I mean, Microsoft have just let 2,600 managers go because they couldn't actually work out what they were doing. And that is happening. I'm speaking to organisations that are delayering left, right and centre. Your currency will be, are you noted as someone who can get stuff done by enabling the people around you to deliver quickly, which plays right back into Agile. We haven't got the time to make it perfect. We need to think about adapting our features as we go, deliver quickly, capture value. That's how we're going to remain competitive. And if you're not a manager who can enable and mobilise the talents of people, then what are you doing? And that's the truth. So, of course, leadership and development hasn't been doing nothing. They came up with this great idea that if we could teach all our managers to be coaches, that somehow is going to help and help people, be coached and help them, have goals. What happened though is that in a desperation to bring coaching, they turned to the training market, and the only training that exists is teaching people to be an executive coach. And they lifted it up and they called it Manager's Coach, and now managers are supposed to be an executive coach. But when we've done a lot of investigation, a lot of research, we found that whilst managers have attended that sort, has anyone had training, coaching, training, skill training at all? Okay. You're taught the GROW model, almost certainly. But that's an executive coaching model, and it's uncomfortable, isn't it? Trying to coach someone who you hold an agenda for yourself is really challenging. And managers told us that whilst they love the training, they get it, finding the time to have sit-down, structured, one-to-one coaching sessions doesn't really fit with the flow of busy work. It's not aligned. They can't make time for these coaching sessions. And when we look further, every single coaching model in the world, and there's about 13 in circulation, are all executive coaching models. Nobody has done the work to break down coaching and think about what would be the behavioural aspects which would be useful to a manager that would help them bring those coaching behaviours into the flow of work every day. How can we adapt our management style so we're using more of an engaging style that invites people's thinking? And that really was what we needed to do. We need to think about how we're going to integrate coaching as a part of the normal flow of work. It's not going to be reserved to this sit-down coaching session if I ever have the time to do that. So we, after doing that research and finding that no one had really looked at this, we spent years actually codifying the behaviours into a model we now call the STAR model. And the STAR model is broken into two halves. On the right-hand side, you've got a behavioural change. This is not about you trying to change other people's behaviour. This is about us as managers recognising that we need to change how we engage. And the first thing we've got to do is stop helping people. Sounds crazy. It's counterintuitive. Somebody comes to you for help, we're itching to help. We want to help and send them away with a flea in their ear because we know how to fix stuff. But actually, in that moment, we've denied any possibility they might have come up with a good idea, which might be better than ours. So we've got to stop long enough to think, what does this person really need from me? Do they actually need me to solve this problem? Or do they just want to be heard? Or do they just want to bat around some ideas? Maybe they just need a bit of a confidence boost. So if we can put that pattern interrupt and stop and think long enough then to think about what is the most helpful question I can design right now to stimulate their thinking for where they're at right now. So it's not about asking questions to gather information so I can cleverly solve their problem. This is genuinely using what we call purposeful inquiry. And it's a very different thing because all of us are brought up to ask questions that gather information so we can solve problems. That's called diagnostic questioning. And that's what we all use. The learning purposeful inquiry is very different. How do you structure a question to stimulate someone else's thinking? That's helpful to them so they retain accountability. So I'm really helping them bring what they have to bring to it and support them then in finding an action they can take. Not solve the problem, but an action they're confident in taking, with my support perhaps, and then agreeing the follow-up, the result. So I'm empowering them, I'm enabling them, I'm pulling from them. I'm assisting them by asking other questions, getting them to think about an action they can take. that they can go away and start to take. And in doing that, of course, now I haven't stepped into the problem. And that's why managers are stressed. We step into every single problem brought to us, even the routine ones, and we always take on a part of that on our own shoulders. We become stressed. So we're not going to do that anymore. And that's what this model really addresses. And as a result of this model, we developed a program called the Star Manager Program. And no one had really ever codified. We've done lots of research on this. No one has ever really codified how do you engage with people. When you go to work and you have a team, how do you overcome that frisson that you're the manager and you have people working for you? How do you engage them? So this idea of purposeful inquiry is a really non-threatening, non-political way of engaging with people's thinking, pulling them towards you, rather than directing, which is pushing people away, putting them into defensive defiance sometimes, micromanaging. They become a worker, as opposed to someone who's got skills and talents we can draw from. So that's the idea behind the Star Manager Program. And what people learn as a result is something we now call developing an operational coaching style of management. This is about changing the way they move through the business. They're looking for opportunities to be able to engage people using purposeful inquiry to start to solve problems. And so this word cloud really captures it. Two things are really happening as managers learn this operational coaching style. They begin to have a mindset shift. They start to move away from this idea that they're the problem solver towards the idea that they're the enabler of problem solving, helping other people bring their skills and talents in, which means that they retain accountability. So it's moving from this idea of telling all the time to asking more, engaging people. And the results can be really, really rapid. Within as little as a couple of weeks, we hear managers telling us that the dynamics in their team are starting to change. People are changing how they're coming to them. They're not just coming to them with problems anymore because they get used to having you solve problems. They start to come with options. They're starting to come with better thought through ideas about how they might move things forward. So there's a really, really rapid shift once the manager starts to signal to people a change in their expectations. And almost by asking people questions in this way, you're indicating that you truly have a belief in what they could bring to this problem right now. And that's really, really powerful. It's almost subliminal. People just pick up on this change that you're making. They can't even put words to it. But when managers learn this operational coaching style, they're not going, hold on a minute, I'm going into coaching mode right now. It's not that. This is about how am I using purposeful inquiry as a part of my natural interaction with people. And a lot of times people don't even notice they've been asked a question. They'll come back later and say, oh, that piece of advice you gave me was great. You never gave them any advice. You asked the question, they did the thinking. And you show that back to them and say, well, it wasn't me, you did that. And now they're feeling better about their contribution. So really, really powerful, and we were really thankful. We had Matthew Said join us for an event, and he actually did quite a lot of research on the work we've been doing. He said that this is redefining the purpose of management in the 21st century. We need to move away from being a directive manager to being an enabler of other people's skills and talents. And this is really becoming a movement now. We have thousands and thousands of people who are going through this program now and making significant changes in their organisations. I'll talk about those very briefly. We've had the privilege of working with lots and lots of different organisations. We've won multiple awards now for this new approach to operational management to the point where the government heard our work and invited us to apply for research funding. They wanted to know, could operational coaching improve the UK's productivity? That was a hell of a phone call, by the way. That was actually, I got that phone call. Hello, this is the government. And we said, well, yeah, based on the results we're generating, truly we think this is a bit of a breakthrough. So they said, great, money where your mouth is. And we were very lucky. Out of 189 applications for research funding, we were one of 6 to be selected, and the only one talking about an advanced in management practice. They weren't mucking around. They selected the London School of Economics to do that research, and this is a massive randomised controlled trial that went across 62 different organisations with 14 sectors to examine what happens when managers start to use this approach. And they looked at 4 domains. They looked at how managers are spending their time. They are either at any time coaching, or they're leading, or they're managing a situation, or they're doing the work themselves. And you can see at the output, the people with the purple line of people who are going to have the programme. The people with the grey line wouldn't have the programme. So at the outset, you can see the percentage of time they spent was absolutely similar between the intervention and the control group. This is what happened after 6 months. A 70% increase in the amount of time that managers were engaging with their team using an inquiry-led coaching approach. 70%. Leading also went up by 15%, at the cost of managing and doing. What we found was managers were having to do less of the work because they were starting to engage their team to be doing the work that they had been doing, which really shouldn't have sat with them. So there's a real shift in how managers were helping people in the team step up and take on some of those activities, which was winning them back capacity. And on average, managers were winning back about 20% of their time to reinvest in coaching the team more, or doing some more important stuff and taking that from their boss, which helps them advance. Okay? So they're helping their team step up to take on tasks, winning them the capacity to be able to do much more important strategic work. These findings were statistically significant. They went right through 2 separate statistical bodies because the government said this is too good to be true. So they had LSE spend another 2 months recutting the data. Did this favour hospitality and leisure, or was it more for engineering, or did it favour men versus women? It didn't matter how they cut the data, the results came out the same, and the government declared the research as robust and that operational coaching is a universal skill set for all managers. And we promote this approach for all managers at every level, in every organisation, across every sector, and we have worked in every sector. LSE also found that we measured the 9 management competencies we look for as improvement. Every single management competency improved during this research window. Okay? Managers' confidence with things like active listening, using really excellent questioning skills, knowing how to articulate questions that really invoked people's thinking was a new skill set, but they were becoming more confident in doing it. And since the results were published in an academic paper, it's one of the most highly downloaded academic papers you might expect, because this is now being heralded as an advance in management practice. And it's been written up now in 150 separate publications. It's led to the publication of a book, and I asked my able assistant to hold the book up. The answer is a question which recently won the New York Big Book Award, which we're very proud of, and is the first book really that goes beyond sort of the management epithets of we need to be doing this, we need to be doing that, to actually give you the how. The details in there, we put it all in. Because that sort of research, it's 15 years of our life's work under academic scrutiny. Had that not gone well, I wouldn't be standing here today. Thankfully, it went incredibly well, but there's not been a piece of research like it. That breadth of research across multiple organisations and multiple sectors to show that this change in behaviour could have an impact on any organisation was quite remarkable. To the point now where we have worked now with APMG to formulate this into a series of brand new certifications that for the first time would help managers to attest to the fact that they've got an accomplishment in how they're adapting their behaviour and working with the team. There is not an accomplishment like this that's a recognised accomplishment for line managers anywhere in the world. There are thousands of management development courses, but not a single one can say it is the representation of an accomplishment for a line manager. And this actually goes beyond this to really help people develop those engagement skills, which are so important now we've got this new generation entering the workforce. We need, in fact, we're beyond the need. We should have been doing this yesteryear. We've already got 27% into the workforce, and they're pissed because they're not getting what they need, which is development in the workplace. Just a couple of short insights from some learners here. That's a lady from Premier Foods. She said, a short-term effort for long-term benefit, refreshing, straightforward, valuable. And these are people who would tell you that their behaviour has changed. They don't even notice as perhaps they're working through the programme, but when they look back to where they were and now how they're engaged with their team, it's quite remarkably different. Somebody from store operations in Jewson. How changing our approach in a small way can have a positive and long-term benefit for myself and the team, delivering efficiencies and reducing workloads. We worked with Jewson. They generated £10.3 million worth of savings Their ENPS, their Employee Net Promoter Score, went from -10 to +30. Just take a moment. That's historical, because their managers were all engaged in their teams differently. And all the people that worked in duties and branches felt part of something because they were being invited to contribute all the time. No hiding. The NHS, the STAR model has truly been a game changer, driving both individual and collective success. Just the potential within the NHS. We know these organisations are struggling with management. We know the public sector is struggling with productivity. The potential for having a group of managers begin to change their behaviour becomes infectious. So the fact we describe that as a bright shadow. We know that managers who do this help influence other people. They don't even know why, but they start changing the way they communicate. Very powerful. And the most powerful thing, I think, is winning time back. Manager after manager after manager. We worked with a sales organisation, and they said they were winning 40 to 50% of their time back. We are rolling this out for very large organisations. The University of Warwick are currently rolling this out across 2,500 line managers. They have said, we see this as a cultural intervention. If we are going to meet our 20, 30 people strategy, we want to have a university environment in which every single one of our employees can flourish and they feel that they contributed to the growth of our university. And to do that, we need our managers to completely change how they engage their teams. And it's really powerful, and already there, 113% increase in the time they're spending coaching their team members. And I thought I'd just play you this short video. This is one person from Warwick talking about his experience.
Hi, my name is Tim Kay. I'm the Operations Manager for Warwick Sport and have recently completed the Star Coach programme. On this, I've learned how to more effectively manage my team through delegation, improved empowerment, better listening, more effective communication, and can now tailor my approach to each colleague's individual working style. As a manager, I'm more effective because I can better lead my team, productivity levels have improved, outputs are of a high quality, managers to take better ownership of projects, and as a team, we now can work more effectively towards common goals. And finally, and perhaps more importantly, the enjoyment in my work has improved. I achieve better results, I have improved workplace relationships, the feedback I have from my team tells me we're doing the right thing, and I'm now better able to influence the direction and strategy of my team. I must say, I love the STAR programme. It was an eye-opener for me.
And that's typical. We have people write to us, and it's thrilling when people write to us and say, this changed my career. Even senior leaders who've maybe got 5 years of their career left have recognised now, I know what I'm here to do now. It's not about me anymore, I've arrived. This is about how am I engaging the next generation that's going to be taking this organisation. Virgin Atlantic, we're working with Virgin in COVID, fired everybody. They didn't just put them on leave, whatever, it was fired. So when it all started to get better, they had to re-recruit everyone. They said, we want to make this different. If we're inviting people back, we want our managers to be different. And they've implemented this not as a cultural change, but a very clear signal to the organisation that when you come back here, we're going to value you differently because our manager's going to be changing. And it's really powerful. We're working right across Virgin Atlantic now. And that's a complicated business. You've got aircrew, you've cabin, you've got engineering, you've got retail, you've got clubs, different audiences. But again, a universal language right across the organisation about how we're engaging our workforce. Very, very briefly, just I'm aware of time, the programme comes in two parts. The first part is called Star Coach. And Star Coach is all about you. It's your style, how you engage with people, your mindset. And you learn about purposeful questioning, and you learn how to do that, how to apply the STAR model in your everyday behaviour, so that people would notice that you're different in how you engage with people. The second part of the program, and the first part of the programme is basically some free work, there's a workshop. When you go back to the workplace, there are a series of missions to undertake, conversations with team members from which you're going to learn stuff. And then you come back and there's a final practitioner session, which really brings together all that learning and really helps you discover the changes that you've been making about yourself. So that's you and your style. The second, and the first, Westminster are actually running a cohort of this on the 7th of October, first part, Star Coach. And you can stop there, and there's a certification from APMG to become a Star Coach. If you really have a team, though, for whom you're responsible for their annual appraisal, their advancement, their promotion, their career coaching, then you would go on to the second part of the programme as well, which is called Star Manager Practitioner. And that's about others. So the first part is about you, The second part is now you've made these changes, how can you proactively use that to be stretching the team? How are you going to develop the team and their capacity? How are they going to start to take work away from you? It gives you that capacity. So this is really thinking about how are you going to intentionally enable the people in your team? Okay, where are the talents you're not getting to that you can start to see within your team? How are you going to stretch them? How are you going to help them step up? How can you actually actively engage in developing people? And that's a stroke we've now solved succession planning, because here's the how of how do you do that. And so you're really learning about how to manage those challenging conversations, how to set goals, not just set goals like we talked about, but how do we work on those goals? How do we sweep away the barriers, help people evolve and move forward? And when we have a one-to-one, how the hell are you supposed to do a one-to-one? What's supposed to be in it? Then you learn that, and how to apply that operational coaching style. And again, that builds on Star Coach with another piece of pre-work, another workshop, some more work back in the workplace, and another practitioner session, which then gives you the Certified Star Manager Practitioner certification from APMG. So the first part of the program, Star Coach, is 7th of October. The second part, should you wish to go on to that, is on the 5th of November. Westminster are running that program. All learners also receive a pack, which includes the book, but very other aid memoirs, and little things to really help you bring that to life. And these are really important as people are starting to learn these skills. It's what they do with it early on that changes the behaviour. We were working with a very senior lady out at NBC in the US, and she said, the thing about this program is I can't unlearn this. Yeah, she's going into work now. She said, I'm seeing people like I have never seen them before. I'm seeing the people I've been working with for years, and I'm now alert to the fact that they're so talented, and we could be getting this from them if I could find ways of inviting them. So she's actually getting involved in really thinking about how am I enabling people to give more of themselves, which advances them, gives them better career prospects. Really powerful stuff. It's also available as a really powerful online and blended development program that took us 2 years to build. And this is where we work on those scale applications for people at Warwick University. You know, putting 2,500 people through workshops is a challenge, but we now deliver this in cohorts of hundreds and thousands at a time to organisations, and deliver the same experience. Okay, they might be doing aspects of the learning online, but there are opportunities to do live stuff, various Q&A sessions and things that they attend, and it's measurable behavioural change by the end. Does the same as the workshops. Workshops, I think, are always more powerful because you're people from businesses and sorts of conversation, but the online program at scale works really well. That's pretty much the end of my time. I think I just wanted to note and pick up and cross-reference again with Agile, because so many different certifications out there have the word management in them. But what do we even mean by that? You know, management should be an enabling technique that we should have learned about. It should be an enabler of other people's skills and talents. And that's what operational coaching is about. So all of these programs, including Agile, are more powerful if we can then add to that how am I supposed to engage people? Literally, how am I supposed to pull talent from people in this modern era we find ourselves in with this newer generation? And that's where the Star Manager program comes in, and the variance is there. That's you'll get this presentation as well. That's a QR code from my LinkedIn. But more importantly, if you'd like to find out more about the Westminster program, you can go to tinyurl.com/Westminster-star. Or if you're part of an organisation where there's a scale opportunity where you know that this is something that you need hundreds of managers to go through, then you can reach out to us at starmanager.global. And that's my part. Okay, much your rapt attention. Thank you.
I want to join.
You want to join? It's a lot of fun. I mean, we have so many different people and so many walks of life on this. It's so exciting.
Thank you. Thanks, Dominic. I'll introduce myself first, I think. Thank you. Yeah. So my name's Luisa Guerra. I'm the senior manager here at Westminster, looking after short courses. Short courses is kind of the brand, I guess, or the name that we give to our executive education, let's say, in other institutions. And it's short courses are everything that aren't long, and the long courses are the degree courses, right? So my colleague, Dr. Wella Bakri, and I collaborate very closely on the development and of the courses here in the business school. My role is pan-university, so it's across the three colleges. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about us. One of my roles, I guess, and one of my key roles is making sure that we've got the right products, and by that I mean the right courses. So obviously we've heard from Dominic and the great things. We're very excited about launching Star Manager, and obviously we've been a provider of Agile, I think, since 2013, I believe. I've got some stats here later on. So it's getting the right products, getting the right courses to be part of our portfolio. And at Westminster, yeah, we're a bridge, as it says then. How are we a bridge? We're a bridge between our academics, students, and our partners as well. So a lot of what we do is focus on enabling opportunities as well for our students. So we work on this slide later on where you can see we work with a lot of external organisations, and that of course enhances our visibility for our students as well, and promotes other opportunities from an employability perspective. In terms of our courses, obviously, as I've said, kind of short courses, exec ed, there's lots of different names. Obviously, there's the skills agenda that's coming up, there's lifelong learning, all of these things, CPD. So all of that really encompasses all of the products that we and the courses that we run here at Westminster. The portfolios have changed. I mean, I've been at Westminster 17 years, always in this area of education and in professional development as a whole. And we've seen quite a shift in terms of what people want, what their priorities are, and also in terms of formats and deliveries that we've had to adapt, not only because of lockdown, which we very seamlessly transposed our courses onto online delivery, but also who our customers are. So we work very closely with organisations as well. So I've kind of gone ahead a little bit, but I think what we found is that our customers have moved to be employers. Actually, they're the ones that come to us wanting to look for training for their employees. So we've built a lot of relationships there in terms of employers, and we share some. The NHS is one of our, certainly from project management, and we saw an increase during lockdown and COVID as well. So what makes us distinct as well? So it's all of our trainers are accredited, but they're also academics and have industry expertise. So a lot of our project management trainers are project managers themselves. Our digital marketing trainers are also academics and are digital marketeers. So that's really important, not only for our professional qualifications, but also for our students and our cohorts as well. And we'll go on to speak for our undergrad and postgrad students. I've spoken a little bit about formats. So obviously we deliver Agile courses online and on campus. It says in person there, and also the blended approach. So there's I guess through Star Manager we'll see that, where there's the via our virtual learning environments or via the platforms where we have that blended approach. I've just posted a little bit there. There's lots of feedback. I've just put a little bit on there about how the value that our delegates find in having that really hands-on approach from our trainers. Spoken a little bit about the industries that we work with. It's very varied. We also deliver degree apprenticeships here at the university. So our two main sectors are and that's not my area, but it's within my department, are the construction sector and healthcare. So we work, again, project management is incredibly fundamental in the construction sector. So they're two of our kind of key sectors that we work with. I think I'll move ahead. I've just put a slide with it. It's just some of our employers and some of the clients that we have that we work with closely. I think probably, as I said, the two bigger ones are the NHS Met Police recently as well. We've had quite a few coming to us for project management specifically. I think I'll leave it there.